Welcome to Sagely Speaking with Mary Bono, the esteemed former Congresswoman known for her insightful perspectives and vast experience. Prepare to be engaged in thought-provoking conversations with influential personalities, exploring a wide range of topics, from social issues, politics, and policy, to personal development, shedding light on important issues that impact our society. Now, here's Mary.
Greetings, and thank you for joining me on this episode of Sagely Speaking. Have you ever thought to yourself, what is Congress doing about this dramatic and just awful fentanyl overdose epidemic, and what should Congress be doing? I'm sure you've asked yourself that. I talk to myself about that every day. So today we're going to talk to Congressman Buddy Carter from the 1st District of Georgia, who's been very active on these issues. He's a co-sponsor of a number of bills that are very important for this fight. So Buddy, we welcome your participation here today and your expertise. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a very important subject, something that's very important to all of us, but particularly to me as a pharmacist. I'm very interested in it.
You know, I've thought a lot about, I think you're the only pharmacist that I know of in Congress who's actively engaged on this. And I think from your perspective, you had to have seen this from such a dramatically, horrible perspective on the front lines and knowing something was amiss. And I think that your perspective in the Congress is definitely needed. And I thank you, and advocates all over the country thank you for what you're doing. And one of your bills caught my eye. And I know that you're working to get increased access to naloxone in schools. That seems like a no-brainer, and it seems like it should be kind of easy, but I know it's not. Can you tell us a little bit about your efforts there?
Sure. I'm the lead sponsor of Saving Lives in Schools Act, and what that would do would be to make sure that we have naloxone at every school in America, and it should be in every school in America. Look, fentanyl has infested every community in America. We think that the only problem at the border is with illegal immigrants. Well, it's a lot more than that. It's with the drugs that are coming across that border. They're infesting all of our communities, and there's enough fentanyl in this country right now to kill every American many times over. So it's something that we've got to address. But naloxone, of course, when used quick enough and soon enough after the fentanyl, can reverse the effects of fentanyl. So, it's my feeling that naloxone should be everywhere. It should be in every school in America. I carry it in my backpack wherever I go. Thank God I've not had to use it, but I do have it. And I think that it should be, as I say, in every school in America. Wherever you see a fire extinguisher, you ought to see naloxone. When I was growing up, we had a syrup of Ipecac, which, would make you throw up if you had a drug, if you had a poisoning or something. Well, this is the modern day syrup of Ipecac. It is the thing that we need in every medicine cabinet in America, need it in every school in America. Because as I say, if it's used quick enough, it will help and reverse the effects of the fentanyl.
That's right. So just for the people who might not know exactly what naloxone is that it is an opioid overdose emergency reversal drug. So it's amazing because it's truly, it cannot be harmful, right? If somebody takes a dose of naloxone and they maybe didn't need it, it's better to err on the side of caution here. Isn't that true?
That is true. And it's a nasal spray, so it's easily administered. And, it's readily available now. I've often been critical of the FDA with good reason, I believe, but this is one case where they got it right. They actually moved naloxone to where you can buy it without a prescription now, and that's the way it should be. And I applaud the FDA for that and for their quick action on this. This is something that we should have access to without having to get a prescription or without having to have it behind the counter where the pharmacist can only dispense it. Now you can buy it without a prescription. You can get it straight off the shelf. And that is the way it should be. Naloxone is a good drug. As I say, it'll reverse the effects of the fentanyl when used quick enough after someone ingests fentanyl.
Yeah, and also when you think about it, this isn't just somebody who's habituated or using opioids or fentanyl. look, children are being exposed to fentanyl, right? We're hearing more and more horrible stories about a toddler who ingested fentanyl, or, a preteen who's ingested fentanyl. So it's beyond, this is really a matter of you can save a life by carrying this if you're at the right place at the right time. And it is simple. And I think that you're right. The FDA did the right thing in making this over the counter. It's easy to buy, and people ought to just carry it in their cars or carry it on them in case they come across something like this. Like fentanyl, unfortunately, it's everywhere.
It is everywhere, and it's killing over 200 people every day. In fact, it's the leading cause of death for those aged 18 to 45 in our country right now. And that's just ridiculous, the amount that has been across this border. And there really are two problems here. First of all, there's the fentanyl that's coming across that border. And the solution to that is, of course, to secure our border and stop the flow of that fentanyl. But there's also the situation of the fentanyl that's already here. And that's one thing that one of the tools that we can use in our tool chest is the naloxone. There's a lot more that needs to be done, but the naloxone is really part of that as well. And thank you for differentiating between opioid addiction and fentanyl poisoning. As a healthcare professional, as a pharmacist, I was very, very embarrassed and actually felt horrible. I was at a town hall meeting, and a mother, I made the comment of fentanyl addiction. And a mother corrected me, as she should have. And she said, "No, sir, it's not fentanyl addiction. It's fentanyl poisoning." She said, "My son took one pill and he's dead." And she was right and I was wrong. It is fentanyl poisoning. It only takes a minuscule amount of fentanyl to poison someone. That's why it's such a dangerous, dangerous drug.
Well, you're right there. It's an important distinction, and I think advocates have been helping switch that narrative for a little while here. And what's hard too, Buddy, is that we're trying so hard to raise the awareness here about the dangers of fentanyl and how pervasive it is. I had a mother say to me one day that she didn't need to talk to her daughter about the dangers of fake pills or illicit pills, fentanyl, because her daughter was a good kid. And I found that to be, very startling, because this is what's happening. People think that this is going to happen somewhere else, or addiction. You have to be an addict, to use that derogatory term, but, in order to come across fentanyl. And, what's so scary is that kids in college right now think that they're going to take an Adderall and stay up all night to study for a final because they're good kids and they want to ace that final. But that Adderall is laced with fentanyl. So those illicit pills are just dangerous. But the number of parents who don't understand the threat here and how it is in every community and probably every single household in one way or another, the threat itself. So I just want to thank you for that. Can you tell us a little bit, what do you think is going to happen with the bill? Are you going to have a markup soon? Is it going to move in this Congress, which is anything going to move in this Congress?
I hope it will move in this Congress. It needs to move as soon as possible. Obviously, it's good legislation. It's important legislation. It's timely legislation. This should have been done yesterday, and we need to get it done now. We've got a lot on our plate right now with the budget and everything that we're trying to do. But, we can't come to a standstill and make everything else stop. We've got to continue on with our work. And I think Speaker Johnson understands that. And I know that members of our committee, and particularly leadership of our committee, that this is under the Energy and Commerce Committee, I know that they're aware of it.
Right. And I think that's a great point, sort of getting off the topic here of just fentanyl and opioids and all of this. As the public sees the fighting in Congress and the dysfunction and all the things that they see routinely, I always think it's important to focus on members like you. And look, there are members on both sides of the aisle who actually continue to do the work that has to get done in Congress. And I know that your bills are bipartisan. I know that you're doing what you can to get these things to pass. And I think that I like to shed more light on members of Congress like you, who just continue to do the work that needs to get done for their constituents and for their country.
Well, thank you. And thank you for mentioning that it is bipartisan. Fentanyl doesn't discriminate. It's poison to Democrats, to Republicans, to independents, doesn't matter. And when we're losing 200 people every day, this is something that we have to address, and have to address it immediately. If we were to have an airplane crash and it were to kill 200 people, we'd stop every airplane in America from flying until we figured out what happened, until we got it corrected. Yet we lose 200 people every day to to fentanyl poisoning, and it continues to go on. We continue to have a border that needs to be secured. We continue to have the fentanyl out on the streets that we need to be addressing.
No, buddy, I left Congress 10 years ago, if you can believe that. And I'm a lot younger now than I was when I was in Congress. But the border has been a conversation we've been having in a debate and for years and years and years. I mean, I'm sure your constituents are upset about it, like every district in America. You think that we're going to see something there? Especially, I know, like these fentanyl families, I think they're a powerful voice. And I think it changes the narrative here and the importance of addressing the border issues. What do you think we're going to see in regards to this Congress?
Well, I do think we're going to have to see something done with the border because it's tied directly into the government funding bill. And the speaker has been very clear, Speaker Mike Johnson, that we're not going to be able to pass a budget unless we have something done at the border. The two go hand in hand. You know, Mary, when I'm at home, and you served and you understand, but when I'm at home, I get people who ask me all the time, how can you justify sending money to another country to secure their border when our border's not secure? And I'll be quite honest with you, that's a good question. And there's not a good answer to that. People want to see action taken. If you look just as recently as Iowa and the elections in Iowa, when we had those, the two top issues were immigration and the economy. And people are concerned about immigration. They're concerned about the number of people who are coming across here, but they're concerned about the drugs that are coming across here as well.
Oh, absolutely. And when you say border, do you think the northern border too is sort of porous and a threat as well?
No question that it is. And, it's obviously, I don't think it's as bad as the southern border is. But at the same time, it's something we have to pay attention to, and certainly something we've been talking about in Congress that deserves more attention. Look, it's not just people from Central America who are coming across that border now. We've got them from all over, and we've got terrorists coming across that border. And, I'm not a doomsdayer or anything, but we're going to have another 9/11 event. And I can assure you it's going to be from someone who came across that border. It's just, we've got to get this secure. And when I say, the negotiations between the House and passing a budget, that includes, yes, more money for the border, but it also includes policy changes and implementing the laws that are on the book now.
Yeah, no, that's funny. My late husband, Sonny Bono, used to always say, if it's against the law, just enforce the law. You would think it would be that simple, like common sense, right? But you get there and you realize it's not that simple. And this debate is fierce. But we'll continue our conversation in just a moment. Hi, I'm Mary Bono, and I want to share something important with you. My friend Angela Kennecke, an award-winning journalist, has a podcast that speaks directly to the heart. It's called Grieving Out Loud. Angela started this after the loss of her daughter Emily to fentanyl poisoning. This podcast isn't just about coping with grief, it's a deep dive into the realities of the fentanyl crisis, addiction, and the journey to recovery. Angela brings together bereaved parents and experts in addiction, mental health, and grief to offer understanding and hope. I've been there, and I can tell you, it's a conversation we all need to hear. Find Grieving Out Loud wherever you get your podcasts. I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Zomad, whose technology has paved ways for mass activation of trusted messengers by brands, nonprofits, and public sector clients. We believe that this is the future of media buys, behavioral change, brand lift, and purchasing generated by hyper-targeted reach, combined with architected frequency of audiences viewing different content from multiple creators. For more information, go to zomad.com. That's XOMAD.com. So, buddy, we've been focusing on naloxone and access to naloxone in schools and protecting kids, and then the border and the porous border. But, there's another problem and another threat. And I know you have a bill that addresses this too, and that is social media and the ability for kids to get their hands on fentanyl and dangerous drugs via social media. Now, this is a huge issue, and I know the Senate is having a hearing upcoming later this month with the former director of engineering for protection and care from Facebook, and that is Arturo Bejar, and he's very critical of social media giants and the fact that they say they're protecting our kids, but they're not. So again, this is an inside deal, right? This isn't a matter of the border. This is another aspect to this whole war that we're fighting, or I shouldn't say war we're fighting, but this set of problems we're trying to tackle. So can you tell us about your efforts there on social media and how to protect our kids?
Absolutely, because that's something we should be concerned about as well. And you make a great point. This is a bipartisan bill that we're sponsoring that's called Sammy's Law. And it's named after a young man who was, interestingly enough, we had a hearing on this, a press conference at the Capitol, and he lived in L.A. His mother was actually raised on St. Simon's Island in my district in South Georgia on the coast of Georgia. Yeah, it is a small world. But, so often we think it's just a problem far away and it doesn't impact us. But that's not true at all. These are the kind of problems that impact all of us. And social media is everywhere. But what Sammy's Law will do will make available an app that will give parents the opportunity not to spy on their children, not to invade their privacy, but instead it will identify certain keywords that will give them an idea if there are problems, such as drug abuse, such as bullying, all sorts of different things. And it will give them the opportunity to human trafficking. This is keywords that would identify that, so that parents will have the ability to supersede this and to interject themselves into this before it becomes a problem.
Now, how many co-sponsors are on that bill? And thank you for your leadership. By the way, I'm well aware of this because I'm well aware of your leadership. And again, people are out there thanking you and just so grateful that, and I believe Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
She is.
And, again, you'd think, but boy, those are people who are generally pretty partisan sometimes, except on this issue. They're coming together and they're doing what they can to address it. But That's a good point, Mary. And I'm sure you witnessed this when you were in Congress as well. I'm not, and you're not naive enough, nor are your listeners naive enough to believe me if I said there's not gridlock in Congress. There is on certain issues. But we work together on a lot of things. And this is an example of that. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the co-sponsor of this. She is a Democrat. We've got other Democrats who are co-sponsors of it, and Republicans who are co-sponsors of it. So, when you talk about social media and these types of situations, they don't just happen to Republicans or just happen to Democrats. It happens to everyone. And that's why we have to address it from a bipartisan perspective. And that's what we're doing in this situation. Well, it's interesting because you do have the bipartisanship here. You have strong leaders on this bill. So the opposition here is not going to be party politics. It's going to probably be tech, right? So I'm assuming you're going to have some pretty fierce opposition there. But this is common sense, giving parents the tools at their request to be able to be notified if their children, punch in keywords that put off a warning. I mean, so a third-party software provider can simply then tell a parent, hey, they mentioned drugs, as you said, mentioned drugs, they mentioned suicide, they mentioned being bullied. And this is, again, a parental request. They're simply asking these tech companies, right, to give them the ability to do this.
Absolutely.
Isn't that a no-brainer?
It is a no-brainer. You're right. And it's something that the tech companies should be encouraging and not trying to stop. I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee and on Communications Technology Subcommittee, and this is our area, and this is something that we've been working on to address situations like this. But parenting's tough, and you know that and it is tough, and especially today, and when children and kids have so many avenues that. It's hard to keep up with them, but this would be just another tool in the tool chest for parents. Not to spy, not to invade their privacy. No, that's not what we're trying to do. But what we are trying to do is to to save that child who is being bullied, to save that child who is being trafficked, and to save that child who is abusing drugs or buying it from some of these dealers.
Buddy, I think it's important to tell the listeners this, that the simplicity for, in this case, Sammy Chapman, a young kid who, after his parents went to bed, was able to order an illicit pill online as easily as a pizza. And that dealer showed up at the house and gave him a pill. Now, a couple of things here that I always like to point out, and they're important. Look, when we were kids, we had room to be stupid and make mistakes, right? And generally speaking, we would get away with it. But in this case, there's no room for error anymore. These drugs that these dealers are using and deliberately targeting our youth with are deadly. And I think parents, unfortunately, don't realize how real the threat is in their own household, that your child can simply in this case, it was Snapchat, but simply order something and have it delivered. And so when we talk about this, we need to realize how easy it is for kids to use it, how hard it is for parents to know it's happening, and that we're simply asking for tools to help us save our kids from this threat.
We are. And, so you make a great point, and that is that parents aren't aware of it. Often they're not aware of it until it's too late. And that's what we're trying to prevent here. We're just trying to give them the opportunity to be parents and to practice parenting. That's what we're trying to do. You make a great point. It's a different world now. And there is little room for error, particularly when it comes to this, because fentanyl is such a potent drug, and just a minuscule amount can cause so much problem. Just as an example, on the Border Patrol agents who are dealing with this, they have to wear gloves because it can be absorbed through their skin and actually poison them as well. So it's extremely, extremely important.
It absolutely is. Are there other issues you're working on that we haven't talked about yet? I mean, obviously, it's specific to this realm. I know you're very busy in a lot of areas, but specific to fentanyl and the opioid epidemics.
That's about it. Again, the naloxone and the legislation that we've got, the Saving Lives in Schools Act, they're already doing this in Arkansas. I met with a Arkansas state senator who had this passed in their state legislature. But again, anytime you see an emergency box, anytime you see a fire extinguisher, you ought to see the naloxone because it is a life-saving drug. And then, this tool, this new app that we can use on the internet to help parents be better parents and practice parenting. This is the kind of thing, these are the kind of good things that we do in Congress. And we do some good things, if you will remember.
Sure do.
We do. We
yes.
do. People ask me all the time, what's the most surprising thing that you found since you've been a member of Congress? And the most surprising thing is also the most encouraging thing. There really are a lot of good people in Congress. They're there for the right reason. They want to move our country forward. So I know that we take a lot of criticism, but there are really a lot of good people up there for the right reasons.
You're right, and I'll put you in that bucket, buddy. Putting constituents first and constituent services and doing the hard work that it takes day in and day out to be a member of Congress. I assume it's a much tougher place there now than when I served. Not that it was easy back then, but it's much tougher, I think, now, and the partisan and hyper-partisanship and all that's going on. But look, it's my hope, too, that the American people could get some comfort from members like you. Again, every day right now, it's the bad political story or the fighting and the campaigns. But at the same time, there are good people like you. And this issue proves it. Well, if there's anything I would love to tell our listeners, please pick up the phone and call your member of Congress's office and support these bills that Buddy's talking about. One is Sammy's Law, and the other is can you remind me of the long title?
Yeah, it's Saving Our Students in School Act.
I always say that the best bill names come from staffers sitting around, with nothing better to do than work with acronyms. I mean, like the Support Act, right? Yeah, which is critical, a hugely important bill for this field. And how they came up with the Support Act, which was so perfect, I sometimes think that the staffers might be drinking a few beers when they're able to come up with these acronyms, but it's very important. So I hope that our listeners will call their member of Congress and encourage them to support all of these things that Buddy's working on. So is there anything else? I don't need to keep you too long other than to, first of all, say thank you for your work.
Well, thank you. And thank you for what you're doing and bringing this message to the people, because this is something that needs to get out, and addressing the fentanyl crisis, addressing the social media problems that we have in this country. These are important subjects, and thank you for getting that message out.
Well, it's our pleasure. And again, we'll hope to help you see those through the finish line this year. And we wish you the best of luck with your reelection. And,
thank you.
Just want to, again, thank you for joining us. And for the listeners, if you want more information about our podcast, just visit us at sagelyspeaking.com. I'm Mary Bono, and I welcome your feedback. You can also reach us at hello@sagelyspeaking.com. So again, we look forward to getting together again soon. Take care until then.
Thank you for joining us today on Sagely Speaking with Mary Bono. Remember, wisdom is a journey, not a destination. For more insights, visit our website at sagelyspeaking.com.